My name is Dave, and I'm one of the owners and operators of Homeschool Tracker. And we just want to spend just a second here just to say thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know there are so many other things you could be doing at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, so we really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to learn a little bit more about Homeschool Tracker and how to use it effectively in your homeschool. Um, Really, our mission here at Homeschool Tracker is to not only create the tools that will allow you to be more effective in your homeschool, but then also to give you the support and the training to use those tools the best way possible. And that's what webinars like tonight are all about, really just giving you that support, allowing you to ask questions and to make sure that you are the best equipped as possible to use Homeschool Tracker effectively in your homeschool. So let's dive right in. I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover tonight. Just a few housekeeping notes. We are recording this session, and we will certainly send an email to everyone that registered with a link to that recording when it's available. We are scheduled to go for about an hour, so the presentation usually takes about an hour, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So feel free to ask any and all questions you have, and I'm more than willing to stay on as long as necessary to make sure that you get all of your questions answered. But let's go ahead and jump in. We'll talk about a little bit about where to find help within Homeschool Tracker. If you've spent any time within the program, you've probably noticed that it's a really feature-rich program. And so there's certainly lots of different parts to Homeschool Tracker and different features. And so I want to talk a little bit about where you can get help and support for each one of those. We'll do a little bit of an interface tour, kind of walk through the menu and where you can find things. We'll discuss the difference between subjects and courses and how to set those up within your account. Then we'll discuss assignments, which are really the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. Then we'll dive into lesson plans, which are a really popular feature that can save you a lot of time. Then we'll talk about reports, specifically the daily task list. And then we'll discuss workflows. And what I mean by workflows is really how you use Homeschool Tracker on a day-to-day basis. What is it that you do on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, each and every day, how you would use it within your homeschool. And we'll probably discuss a little bit, we'll go over some of those workflows throughout the presentation tonight, but certainly we'll recap and kind of go over those again at the end. And then, like I mentioned, we will have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So let's dive right in to where to find help. So I think probably the best place to find help when it comes to Homeschool Tracker are these webinars, just like tonight. So we do these pretty much every other week, and it's just a great opportunity to hear directly from us and to ask any and all questions that you might have. So we do this every other week and stay on as late as necessary to make sure that everyone's comfortable and they have all of their questions answered. So one place where you can find all the upcoming training sessions and webinars, if you go to our website, homeschooltracker.com, and then go up to the support tab and then click on Training Center, you'll find all of the upcoming training events, as well as links to all of our past training events. So you can see replays of previous sessions. This one over here, this is the lesson planning session that we did a few months ago. Definitely recommend checking that out if you're interested in lesson planning. But again, the training center and these webinars that we do every other week are really a great opportunity to learn the ins and outs of the program and get all of your questions answered. The other place I would recommend would be our Getting Started tutorial videos. So if you jump over to our help site, which is just help.homeschooltracker.com, this is a really comprehensive help guide. And right here at the top are our Getting Started videos. And there are 13 different videos. Each one's only a few minutes long. Altogether, it would take you about 30 minutes to watch all of them. But this is a great place to jump in if you have a specific question or a specific area within the program that you're looking for guidance on. You can jump right to that and get some support that way. And then while we're here on the help site, just to kind of go over this is really a comprehensive resource guide. And I like to think of it as really a reference guide within Homeschool Tracker. And so what I like to show folks is that anywhere within Homeschool Tracker, so here we are at the main menu. I'm just going to jump to, say, the calendar view, for example. Whenever you're within any screen within Homeschool Tracker, if you click on this help link up in the top right, it'll take you directly to the corresponding help page for that page that you're on within Homeschool Tracker. And so this page here is the help guide for the agenda calendar view, and it has anything and everything you've ever wanted to know about the calendar view, along with links to relevant areas. The other way that I like to show folks to navigate the help site is really just using the search box here. So for example, if I type in days off and hit enter, I can jump right to the page on creating a day off within Homeschool Tracker. And so really, like I mentioned, this is just a really great reference guide for all of the features within the program. And then last but certainly not least, email. You can always email us at support@homeschooltracker.com. We respond to each and every email that we receive, usually within 1 to 2 business days. And if you've emailed us in the past, you've probably gotten a response much quicker than that. So my wife, Amy, and then our customer support person, Sherry, monitor that email box 24/7 essentially, and we'll respond to each and every email that we receive within 1 to 2 business days. So definitely shoot us an email if you have any questions at all. And it can be specific to a feature within Homeschool Tracker. It could be about strategies or techniques on how to use it within your homeschool, whatever it is. Don't hesitate to email us if you have any questions. Okay, so let's jump into an interface tour. I'm just going to go ahead and close out some of these windows here. All right. So here we are within Homeschool Tracker. I'm just going to make that a little bit smaller. There we go. And once you log into the program, you'll probably notice this big menu here. And you can open and close that menu at any time just using this drop-down arrow. But the menu is broken up into 5 different areas. So up here in the top left, you have the schedules and planning section of the menu. This is where you'll find the agenda, both in calendar view and list view. And the agenda is really just that. It's your list of things that you need to do or that your student needs to do. Below that are your lesson plans, which we'll cover later, as well as the shared lesson plan library, which is where you can import and share lesson plans throughout the Homeschool Tracker community. Below that is the student section of the menu. This is where you'll find the main student list, where you can assign grade levels for your students. This is also where you'll find the grading overview, which shows you each and every grade that your student received over a given period of time. And then below that is the lesson plans and presets page, which we'll cover a little bit later, as well as the transcript supplemental section, where you can add supplemental things to your student's transcript. Things like awards, achievements, extracurricular activities, that sort of thing. Right here in the middle is the reports section of the menu. And each one of these listed here can generate a report. And reports are generated as PDF files, which you can then print, save, or email off. And this is where you'll find things like the attendance report, or the course list, or the daily task list, which we'll talk about later. You also find report cards and your transcripts. This is where you can generate all of those reports. The top right section of the menu, this is the Manage List section. And the Manage List section is really more of a maintenance area of the program because you're probably not going to be in and out of here on a day-to-day basis, but it's important to know what it is and what you'll find there. So each one of these items here, activities, chore names, courses, etc., these are all lists. So if I wanted to create a new activity, I would go to the activities page here and create it or edit it. This is where you would create or edit course names or your grading scales or your library. And that's why I call it more of a maintenance area, because that's where you're going to go in, kind of set things up or tweak things, but you're not necessarily going to be in and out of there on a day-to-day basis. And then the lower right section here, this is the Your Account section of the menu. This is where the program options are, where you can set up your school profile as well as modify your subscription preferences or generate different user accounts for other teachers or for students. So that's just a quick overview of the menu, and we'll dive into different areas within here as we go on tonight. So next, let's talk about subjects and courses and the difference between the two and how we set things up within Homeschool Tracker. Now, it's important to kind of understand how we think about subjects and courses, mainly because how you set them up within your Homeschool Tracker account will certainly benefit you down the road, especially if you are generating reports and like a transcript or report card. And so it's good to kind of understand the framework and kind of how things are set up before you kind of dive into things. So we think of subjects as really broad areas of study. So things like math, language arts, history, or science. And then courses are the specific areas of study within those subjects. So for example, Algebra 2 would be the name of a course that would belong to the subject of math. Or Composition 1 would be a course that would belong to the subject of language arts. Or Physical Science 1 would be a course that would belong to the subject of science. So we like to think of subjects as really these broad areas, almost like buckets of more specific courses. So almost kind of 2 layers in terms of a hierarchy. So let's take a look at a quick demo of how that's set up. So I'm going to jump back to Homeschool Tracker and go to the subjects list right here. Now, when we jump over to the subject screen, you'll see right away that I have 4 subjects here. I have history, language arts, math, and science. And, there's really not a whole lot to do here, right? Because again, subjects are really just these broad, almost containers of courses. So if I were to double click on history, for example, I can change the name of it. I can set it as core or elective. I can see what courses belong to that subject currently. I can make it active or inactive. If I wanted to create a new subject, I could just click on action and then choose add, give that subject a name and save it. But otherwise, not a whole lot going on here on the subject screen because again, subjects are really just kind of containers of courses. They're really just broad, non-specific areas of study. But let's jump over to the courses screen and see how that looks. So here we are on the courses list, and right away you'll notice a lot more information here, a lot more data. So for example, I have Ancient History 1 here, which belongs to the subject of history, as you can see. It's worth 1 credit unit. It has a way to calculate those credits. There's, you can choose weighted grading, etc. If I double click on it, I can see all of those options here. So already you can see that each course can have different settings, right? You might have one course that uses one grading scale and another course using a different grading scale. One course might use weighted grading and another might not use weighted grading. One course might be worth X number of credit units and the other one might not be worth any credit units. So this is where you can get really kind of granular in terms of how you're setting up each and every course. And then remember that courses, in this case Ancient History 1, then have to also belong to a subject. In this case, history. So let's go ahead and create a new course just so we can see how that works. I'm going to go ahead and click on action and then add. And I'm going to give this course a name. I'm going to call it Reading 1. And then for subject, now Reading 1 would probably belong to the subject of language arts. So I'll type in language arts. I'm going to stop right there because you probably noticed that as I was typing, language arts popped up here. That's because this is what's called a smart entry field. And you'll notice these fields throughout the program. And what they do is as you're typing, it's searching the corresponding list, in this case, the subject list, for anything that matches what you're typing. So as I was typing language arts popped up. If I don't know what I'm looking for, I can just hit space and see a list of everything that's within that subject list and select it that way. So really kind of handy way to quickly find what you're looking for. I'm going to keep all of these other settings kind of the default. Again, if you have any questions about those, certainly you can ask them later or check out the corresponding help page for those. But I'll go ahead and click on save. And then I will refresh this. And there we go. I have a new course, Reading 1, which is part of the language arts subject. And there it is. It's ready to go. I can start using it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's next. So that's kind of how subjects and courses are structured within a homeschool tracker. Now, a few things to watch out for. I would not recommend using the exact same name for both a subject and a course. So for example, if you have a subject called language arts, I would not recommend creating a course also called language arts. Again, you want that course name to be much more specific. And a course too, you can think of it like a class. It's something that you're only taking for a certain period of time, maybe a semester or two. And so it's very time specific and it's very specific in terms of the area of study of what you're doing. Now, another thing to watch out for is a slash. When you see a slash within Homeschool Tracker, that shows the break or the difference between a subject and a course. If you don't see a slash, that means you're just looking at a subject. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to jump over to the calendar view real quick. And I'm just going to create a new assignment just so we can see this. So right here, when I'm creating a new assignment, you'll see that we kind of consolidate the subject and the course fields into one, and we just call it subject/course. We do that because if I go ahead and just hit the space bar here, because it's a smart entry field, I can kind of see a list of all the subjects and all the courses all in kind of one field here. So for example, I see history at the top, and then I see history/ancient history 1. So history by itself here, this is just the subject, and you could certainly create assignments that belong to just a subject. But if I wanted the course, Ancient History 1, I would want to make sure that I selected this one because it was history, subject, / Ancient History 1, the course. So if I selected that, then this assignment is going to be corresponding with the course, Ancient History 1. So again, as you look through these, you can see language arts by itself, that's just the subject. Then I have language arts / reading 1. That's the course that we just created. So again, if you see that /, all it's really denoting is the difference between the subject and the course, and how we view it here within this kind of combined subject course field. Okay, so that's the difference between subjects and courses and how people typically set them up. I would say the average homeschool tracker account probably has anywhere between 4 and 10 subjects. If you have more than that, then you probably want to think about how you're organizing things. But then your account could have literally hundreds of courses, right? Because you can imagine if your student is starting, in first grade and going all the way through high school, and they're taking all these different courses throughout the course of their homeschool career, they will certainly accumulate that many courses. But each one of those courses is going to kind of correspond back to a broader subject. So that's why you might have 4 to 10 subjects, but you could have hundreds of courses. All right, so let's jump into assignments, because assignments are really kind of the heart of all your record keeping within Homeschool Tracker. We like to think of assignments as the schoolwork tasks that we give our students to complete. So anything that you want to track over time, anything that you want to mark complete, essentially, for your student would be an assignment. And so an assignment can take many forms. It could be, say, a lesson. It could be an exam. It could be homework. It could be a quiz or a test. It can be pretty much anything that you want to perhaps give a grade to, that you want to track over time, or that you want to mark complete or incomplete. That would be an assignment. And so here you can see assignments are kind of right here in the middle, and that's why we call them the heart of all your record keeping. And they can come from a couple different places. So you can create assignments individually or in a series, or they can come from lesson plans, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But lesson plan items can become assignments once you run them through the scheduler, once you schedule them as assignments. And because assignments have all of this data within them, you can do so many things because of assignments. So you can generate report cards and transcripts because of assignments. If you have auto attendance enabled, you can create attendance records because of assignments. You can generate the daily task list, which gives you kind of a list of everything you need to do in a given day because of assignments. And all of those other additional reports that you saw, many of them are generated because of all of the data that you put into your assignments. Now, this is a basic assignment entry form, and we actually kind of looked at this just a minute ago, but there are really only 3 required fields in an assignment. You have a student, the subject, course, and a date. Everything else is optional, but again, the more information you put into this assignment, the more you can do with it down the road. And really, it's kind of up to you in terms of how much you want to put into it. But I always like to tell people to think about what it is they want to get out of Homeschool Tracker at the end of the day, because that will help dictate how much information or how much effort you put into things like assignments. So you can choose your student. You can assign it a subject course. You can give it an activity name, a thing like a lesson or a quiz or a test. A resource, which would be like a library item from your library. PLC stands for page, lesson, chapter. So you can put in like lesson 1 or chapter 2. There's a full rich text editing directions field in here. You can create start and end times for your assignments. You can grade your assignments with points possible and earned. You can put in how much time was spent in each one of these assignments, or have it automatically calculate based off of the start and end time. Then you can set if you want to be able to reschedule this assignment. And then the completion buttons here, these are really important. You can mark things as student complete or teacher complete or both. Now, when an assignment is marked complete by a teacher, this is where the real power kind of happens, because what that means then is that you as the teacher are saying this assignment is completed, it's finished. And so a number of things can then be generated because of that. So that if you have automatic attendance enabled, attendance can be recorded. Grades can be generated if you're grading, time spent can be calculated, and from all of that data, again, all of those reports can be generated. So let's do a little bit of demo on assignments. What we'll do is we'll create single and multiple assignments. We'll add grades to them, and we'll mark them complete. And we'll do that both from the calendar view as well as the list view. So let's jump back over here to Homeschool Tracker. And I'm right here on the calendar view right now. And what we'll do, let's make sure we're here on today, is we will go ahead and click on Add Assignment Single. So we're just going to create one assignment right now. And I'll go ahead and choose a student. I'll choose my daughter Campbell. And then for subject course, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the space bar. I'll choose Ancient History 1. Activity, again, activities can be a number of different things. I'm going to make this a lesson. Now, resource would be an item within your library that you've designated as a resource. So I can see a list of all of those. I'm just going to choose this book here. And PLC, again, stands for page, lesson, chapter. So I could say this was lesson 1. And let's go ahead and make that for today. Let's say we'll give it a start time of 8 a.m. and have it go to 9 a.m. And we'll have it be worth 10 points. And that's it. I can add more information here like links or directions, but I'll go ahead and click save. And there you go. Now I have this assignment right here on the agenda for Campbell for Ancient History 1, and it's lesson 1 from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Now let's say our day kind of came and went, and I want to go in at the end of the day and give this assignment a grade and mark it complete. All I have to do is double click on it, and I get a little preview of the assignment here. I can mark things complete right from here, or if I want to, I can click on more, and it takes me back to that editor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a grade first. I'm going to say she got 9 out of 10 on that, and then I'm going to go ahead and check the box for teacher complete. And when I check that, you'll notice that this calculated here a grade of 90%. So let's go ahead and save it. And once I clicked save, you may have noticed a few things. So first off, the assignment itself got a little bit darker in color. That just shows me that it has been marked complete. And then also this Campbell present showed up here. This is an attendance record, and it showed up because I have auto attendance enabled. And what auto attendance does is basically assumes that if you have marked an assignment complete on a given day, then likely your student was there in school that day. So let's go ahead and create an attendance record for that student. Now you can turn that on or off in your program options or change the settings of that, but it is kind of a nice feature because you then don't need to go ahead and create attendance records manually. You can kind of have them automatically created as you go along. So there you go. We just created a single assignment. We gave it a grade and we marked it complete. And we just did that one assignment at a time. Now, thinking about workflows, like I mentioned before, a lot of folks do this each and every day. So you can imagine maybe the night before or the morning of, kind of go through and kind of plan out your day, create assignments for your students or for yourself for that matter, and go about your day. And then at the end of the day, go in and grade your assignments and mark them complete. The other way that you can do this is kind of in reverse. So perhaps if you're an unschooler or if you're just not really a big planner necessarily, you kind of want to see how your day goes, you could effectively go in at the end of the day and just kind of like we are now, you know, here at 8 o'clock, and just create all the assignments for the work that you did do that day and mark them complete and give them grades. And then Homeschool Tracker really becomes more of a record keeping or logging tool and less of a planning tool, and that's totally fine, right? And that's kind of the beauty of the program, I think, is that it's really this open platform where you can use it in a number of different ways. And so we've seen many homeschoolers that kind of have more of an unschooling approach start to use Homeschool Tracker really in this kind of logging method where at the end of the day or the end of the week, they'll go through and just kind of log all of the things that they did that day. And then you still have this great, robust record-keeping tool that allows you to generate report cards and transcripts at the end of the year, at the end of the semester. So kind of just thinking about how you might use Homeschool Tracker. You could certainly start just by doing single assignments, just like we did just here. But let's go ahead and create multiple assignments now. So I'll go ahead and click on Add and choose Assignment Multiple. And what you get here is the Add Multiple Assignments kind of wizard, right? So you kind of steps through different options here to allow you to create multiple assignments all at once. So let's start here. And first thing we can do is we can create multiple assignments for a single student or multiple students at a time. I'm just going to keep Campbell selected here. And for subject course, I'll choose Ancient History. The activity will make these lessons. And for resource, we'll just pick this book again. Let's go ahead and create these again for 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. We'll make them all worth 10 points. Okay, so now I'm going to continue to day and date, which kind of takes me to this next tab. And let's say I want them to happen every day. And let's have it start tomorrow, the 14th. And then I have the option to continue creating items until an end date, or I can continue creating items until a PLC pattern is exhausted. I'm going to choose that option so you can see how that works. So I'll go ahead and continue to PLC. Now remember, PLC stands for page, lesson, chapter. And if you think about it, if you're creating multiple assignments, more than likely, the PLC or the page lesson chapter would not be the same for each one of those assignments, right? You know, the first one might be lesson 1, then the second one might be lesson 2, then lesson 3, and so on. So what we've done here is we have these auto increment features where you can have it automatically increment the PLC as it's creating more assignments. So I'm going to do a 1-part auto increment, and I'm going to change the leading text here to lesson. And let's say it starts with lesson 2, because we already created lesson 1 manually, and we'll end with, let's just end with lesson 4, and we'll increment by 1. Okay, so now if I go ahead and continue to preview, it's going to give me a preview of what we're about to create. And so you'll see that it's creating lesson 2 for Wednesday from 8 to 9, then lesson 3 for Thursday from 8 to 9, then lesson 4 for Friday, 8 to 9. So if I like this, I can go ahead and select all of these and then choose accept. If I needed to change anything, I can just jump back to any one of these tabs if I like. Let's go ahead and return to the preview here. Select all these and choose accept selected items. And there you go. We just created 3 more assignments. And if you look closely, you'll see this one over here that we created just as a single was lesson 1. And then we created 3 more with this pattern where it goes lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. And as you can see, if you open these up, they're just like those single assignments that we created, except we did 3 of them and we did it rather quickly. So really powerful way to create multiple assignments, all at once. And again, thinking about workflow, you could do this at the beginning of the week, for example, and create your 5 assignments or however many you need for the rest of the week rather quickly. Now, I'm going to jump over to the agenda list view to show you how that works. But before we do, let's just kind of do a quick recap here on what the calendar view, all these different features here within the calendar view and what they do. So here, up here at the top, you'll have noticed the add button. This allows you to add different items to your agenda. These blue tabs here are essentially filters. They filter what you're viewing here in the agenda. So for example, if I wanted to filter by students, I could select which students I wanted to view or just view all of them. The types here allow me to choose what types of items I want to view. So if I uncheck this box for attendance, then that attendance record goes away. The record is still there in the database, but I'm just not viewing it because it's being filtered out right now. Or I can bring that back. I can filter based off of completion status or subject course. So really powerful filters here, especially as your agenda really grows, or if you have multiple students, it may be necessary to kind of change what you're viewing so that you can see only the things that you're interested in right then. Now below that is this export to PDF button. If I click on that, it will essentially export whatever is currently in my agenda into a PDF file. And so here's this PDF file that I can print out or I can send to somebody. Really handy way to quickly print or export what you're looking at in your agenda. Below that is the Today button, which will take you directly to today, navigation buttons here. And then over here are the different views. So if I wanted to view it by day, by week, by work week, by month, this agenda view, which is kind of like a list view here, or timeline, which is a horizontal timeline, which is really kind of neat if you have multiple students. They kind of stagger here, and you can see their agenda left to right. So lots of different options in how to view your calendar. And then at the very bottom, there's this button that says Show Full Day. If I click on that, I see the entire day, so basically midnight to midnight. Or I can show just the school hours. And the school hours are set up in your program options. Mine are set right now from 8 a.m. to, looks like 7 p.m. So that's just a quick overview of the calendar view and kind of all of the different features within it. But let's jump over to the list view real quick. So as you saw from the menu, the agenda can be viewed in either calendar format or in list format. And you'll see why here in a second. So now that I'm on the agenda list view, we're looking at essentially the same data. This is all the same data, right? Except we are viewing it slightly differently. So here you can see instantly, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 assignments, and I can see all of the details about each one of them rather quickly, just kind of at a glance. Wasn't really able to do that from the calendar view, right? But on the list view, you can have all these different columns and you can kind of see all of the information. So I can see, for example, that this one's already graded and it was a 9 out of 10. These have not been graded yet. I can also see the attendance record here. So the list view has a number of features that you wouldn't necessarily find in the calendar view just because of the way that it's laid out. Let's just kind of go over what this view, how to navigate within this view. So here on the left, this green column, these are all your filters. So just like we had those blue tabs at the top of the calendar view, here you have this green column here. And so right now you can choose, what time period I'm viewing. I can filter based off a student, etc. Those are all here. Up at the top, I have the add button so I can add items. The action button, which allows me to edit things. The options here allow me to enable different columns or disable columns if I want. And then I also have a search box here, so I could search within all of the data within my list. And then navigation buttons here if I have a lot of items in my list. But what we'll do is let's edit multiple items at once, because if you recall from the calendar view, you can really only edit one item at a time. And one of the really nice things about the list view is that it allows you to edit multiple items at once. So I'm going to go ahead and select these 3 assignments. And then I'm going to choose Action, Multi-Edit. Now I can edit pretty much any of the fields within those assignments, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and grade them. So I'm going to say she got 8 out of 10 on all of those, and I'm going to mark them complete here as well and click Save. And so there you go. You'll notice that attendance records were created for each one of those. And then if I scroll over, you'll see that these are all graded now, 80%, and they all marked teacher complete. So a really quick way to affect or edit multiple items all at once right here from the agenda list view. Now, one other thing I'll point out is these columns allow you can sort by these columns. So I'm sorting by date right now, ascending or descending. I could sort by multiple columns at once if I like. To clear a sort, I can just keep clicking on that column until this little triangle goes away. I can also group by column. So if I wanted to group by type, for example, I would just drag this column up here. And now all of my items in this list are grouped by their type. So I have all my assignments here and all of my attendance here. This becomes in real handy too, especially like if you have multiple students. I could group by student and have all of Campbell's items here and all of Manning's items here. So really flexible way to manipulate and to view your data in different ways. So that is the agenda list view. All right, so just to recap, we created single and multiple assignments. We added grades to those assignments. We marked them complete. And we did that both from the agenda calendar view as well as the list view. So now let's jump into lesson plans. So lesson plans are a sequence of items that have not yet been scheduled as assignments. So they look a whole lot like assignments, and we'll see that here in a second, except they don't have a student, they don't have a date. The reason behind that is that you can kind of plan out everything in detail for an entire course or for a curriculum using lesson plans, and you don't have to necessarily know when you're going to assign them or for what student they're going to be. So because they're not tied to a particular student, that means they can be reused over and over again throughout your homeschooling career. So for example, if you created a lesson plan for freshman biology for your oldest student, you can kind of go through the year with that student, and then when your younger students take that course, you can just pull out that same lesson plan and go through it again. This comes in handy, especially if you're using like a predefined curriculum or like an off-the-shelf curriculum that maybe you purchased. It likely came with a lesson plan, or you could create one rather easily. And that's really powerful too, because then you can just basically have this sequence of lesson plan items and you kind of dole them out as your year goes and assign them to your students. And that way you don't have to necessarily know exactly when lesson 27 is happening. You just know that lesson 27 is happening after lesson 26. The other nice thing about lesson plans is they can be shared and imported using our shared lesson plan library. So again, our shared lesson plan library has probably over 1,000 lesson plans in it now. And I would say most of them are based off of off-the-shelf curriculum that you could download and import into your Homeschool Tracker account. This is also great if you are part of a co-op or in a group of some kind, and you're doing similar curriculum. You can have one member of your group create the lesson plan and then share it with everybody else. But let's go ahead and take a look at lesson plans. So what we'll do is we will see an example lesson plan, because I think it's always better to just see an example of what one looks like. Then we'll create a simple one, and then we'll import one from the lesson plan library, and then we'll schedule lesson plans, and we'll discuss using presets for scheduling. So let's jump back here to Homeschool Tracker. I'm going to go to the lesson plan screen. Now, if you're brand new to Homeschool Tracker, you probably don't have any lesson plans in here currently. So you would need to create one or import one, but I have a few in here. So I'm just going to load up my list of lesson plans. Let's just take a look at this Abeka arithmetic one. So first off, you'll probably notice the lesson plan screen looks a whole lot like the agenda list view. It's very similar layout. You've got your filters here on the left, and then all of your data here in the center. And right here, this is the lesson plan for this Abeka arithmetic first grade lesson plan. And what you'll notice is each one of these items looks a lot like an assignment. So if I open one of these, again, this looks very familiar, right? It looks a lot like an assignment, except if you look closely, there's no student, there's no date, but everything else is there. So instead of a date, we have a day number, which just means this is day number 1. So that just means this is the first item in this lesson plan. So literally on the first day, when you want to use this lesson plan, this is what you'll need to do. You'll need to do lesson 1. On the second day, if I just click on next here, this is what you need to do, and so on. So let's take a look at this, and that's why I say it's a sequence of items, right? They're not just random order. They're in this day order. The one thing I will point out, because this comes up often, is that just because it's day 1 and then day 2 doesn't mean that day 1 is a Monday and day 2 is a Tuesday, right? If I'm only doing Abeka arithmetic once a week or every other day, for example, all it means is day 2 is the second day that you're doing this lesson plan. So that could be the next day after day 1, or it could be 10 days later. It really doesn't matter. And that's the beauty of lesson plans, is that you can always just pick up where you left off. And that's really kind of speaks to the flexibility of homeschooling in general, right? And one of the reasons why so many of us do it is that, you don't want to be tied to having to do this lesson on Monday and this lesson on Tuesday and this lesson on Wednesday. You can just pick up where you left off, and knowing the sequence of these items is the only thing that you really need to know. So let's take a look at it. You'll see, the first 11 days here are basically lessons 1 through 11. And then on day 12, there's a test, an oral test that's worth 100 points, and then another test worth 100 points. Then that pattern continues. You do some more lessons and some more tests. If I scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that this goes to day 171. And there are 202 total items in here. So this is really a full year's worth of lesson plan items for first grade arithmetic. So that's how you can see that a lesson plan can really kind of structure and create all of the information that you need for assignments ahead of time. And then whenever you're ready to actually do it, then you would take one of these items here and then schedule it to create an assignment for your student. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But let's go ahead and create a simple lesson plan so you can see how it's done. What we'll do is we'll go to Add, Multiple. And now this wizard here looks a whole lot like the Add Multiple Assignments wizard, doesn't it? Because again, assignments and lesson plan items look very similar, but they're also very different. So first off, it's going to assume that I want to add this to the existing plan. I don't want to do that. I'm going to create a new plan. To create a new plan, I can just give it a new name right here, and it'll save that new name. I'm just going to call this Sample Plan. And let's make it for ancient history. And let's create some lessons. And let's add a book and say they're all worth 10 points. And then we'll continue to day numbers. So I want to start on day 1, and we'll increment by 1. Sure. And then continue to PLC. Now again, I can do an auto increment for my PLC here. So I'm going to start with lesson 1, and we'll end with lesson 10. We'll increment by 1. So I'll continue to preview. Now, if you've been following, what do you think it's going to do when I continue to preview, right? It should, because of how I did my PLC here, right? It should create 10 lesson plan items, starting with lesson 1 and ending with lesson 10, and it should go day 1 through day 10, right? So let's see if that's what happens. Continue to preview. And here you go. I've got day 1, day 2, day 3, all the way to day 10. And you'll notice it goes lesson 1, 2, 3, all the way to lesson 10. And each of these is worth 10 points, and everything else is good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and select these, and then choose Accept Selected Items. And now I'm back on the lesson plan screen. So all I have to do is load that lesson plan up if I want to see it. Again, it was the sample plan. Click OK. And there we go. Now, let's say I want to add a test at the end of this. I can just go to Add. I'll do Add Single. And let's call this a test. And let's say it's going to happen on day 11, and it's worth 100 points. Let's go ahead and save it. So there you go. Now I have 10 days of lessons, and on day 11, I have a test. And I could continue this sequence or this pattern and create 180 days if I want. There's also some faster ways to do that if you plan ahead. And so I would definitely recommend checking out that lesson planning webinar that we did a few months ago that I showed you earlier. Watch that through, because we talk about all those strategies in terms of how to create lesson plans that are really deep in terms of the complexity and how to do it in a way that's still very efficient. So definitely check out that webinar if you're really interested in lesson plans. So that's a sample lesson plan, and this is a simple one that we just created. Let's now import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library. So I'll jump back here. Let's go to shared lesson plans down here. Now, if I want to just see all of the shared lesson plans, I can just go ahead and enter a blank search here. And here you go. So there are literally, I think, over 1,000 lesson plans in here now. And as you can see, as we scroll through, these are all, usually most of them are based off of kind of off-the-shelf curriculum. So definitely, and keep in mind, these are created by other users, right? So they might not be perfect, but they're oftentimes a really good start, or something that you can modify for your own use, right? These are not created by the publishers themselves. They're created by other users just like you. So keep that in mind when you look. And if you ever were to contribute a lesson plan, adding in additional details like this, or kind of some notes, is certainly helpful to other users that are looking at it. But I'm going to go back to the top here and search for a reading lesson plan. I'm going to scroll down to this Usborne First Reading Level 1 plan. And here it is. So if I look at it, I can kind of preview it. It's a 15-day plan, and it has all this information that somebody put in here. What I'll do is I'll click on Prepare for Import. And first thing I want to do is give this new lesson plan a name. I'm just going to call it Reading 1. And I'm going to take a look at it here. So I can select all of these items and accept them to import it. But before I do that, I'm just going to look at it. And one thing I noticed is that the subject course is just language arts, right? And if you remember when we talked about subject course, if you just see language arts and no slash, then it's just going to be come in as the subject language arts and not a course. Now, I could certainly import this and change it later, but I can also change it right now. So I'm going to go ahead to Action and choose MultiEdit, because I want to change this to Language Arts / Reading 1, that course that we created earlier. I'll click Save. So now when I import this, each one of these items will kind of fall under that Reading 1 course. Also looking at this, you'll notice this has an asterisk and it says New. That just means that these items don't exist in my account currently, but when it imports them, it's going to create them for me, which is nice. So with all of these selected, I'll choose Accept Selected Items. And here we go. We're back in our account now, and this is the Reading 1 plan. And here it is in my account, ready for use. So that's how you import a lesson plan from the shared lesson plan library for your own purposes. Now, let's go ahead and schedule this plan. So remember, lesson plan items are just lesson plan items. They're not assigned to a student yet. They're not on a specific day, so I can't really do much with them other than work on them, edit them or make them better however I want to. But if I want my student to actually use them now, or if I want to use them in my homeschooling, I need to schedule them to my students. So what I'll do, let's go ahead and select the first 5 of, select the first 5 of these, and we'll go up to Action and choose Scheduler. Now, when I'm in the lesson plan scheduler, I can schedule it for 1 student or multiple students. I'm just going to choose Campbell. Then I'll continue to day and date. Now I have a bunch of different options here of how I want the scheduling to work. I'm going to choose daily and have it happen every day. And let's have it be from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then the start date, let's do it for, let's just say, we're doing it for this week. So I'm going to start on Monday, 2 days ago, or yesterday. But this is just for demonstration purposes. And then I can have this option to continue until a specific date, or I continue until all selected items in the lesson plan are used. I'm going to choose this one because I selected 5 of them. So it should schedule them for Monday through Friday for me. Now, if I continue to preview, you can see that I'm scheduling these first 5 days, and it's setting up dates for them and times, as well as assigning them to Campbell. So this is where lesson plan items are now becoming assignments, because remember, Campbell was never a part of these lesson plan items. They never had a date. They didn't have a time or anything like that. So I can go ahead and select all of these and then choose accept. And now if I jump back to our agenda to take a look, there you go. You can see I forgot, I kind of double booked her here and put 2 things at 8 a.m. But what we did is we just scheduled 5 lesson plan items as assignments now for Monday through Friday. And now the thing is, once we scheduled these, now this assignment is totally independent of the lesson plan at this point. So I can change this, I can edit it, I can reschedule it, I can do whatever I want to it, and it's not going to affect that original lesson plan item. Because again, the lesson plan items are kind of like a template. And then when you schedule them, and they become assignments, now that assignment kind of lives off in the wild on its own. But there you have it. You can kind of see like how this workflow might work well for you in terms of if you had a lesson plan kind of ready to go, you could select the items that you want from it, schedule them for the given week or for the next 2 weeks, for example, and you're already ready to go. If you take the time ahead of time to create the lesson plan, then your kind of day-to-day within Homeschool Tracker of just scheduling them is not really that time consuming, because you already did all the hard work of inputting all of that data into those lesson plan items. So that's how you schedule a lesson plan. I also want to show you a more advanced way of scheduling. So that's kind of I would call it lesson plan scheduling 1.0. But we also have the lesson plans and presets page here. So let's jump over to that. And now this page, this section of the program does take a little bit longer to load, just because it's loading all of your lesson plans. There we go. And so with Campbell selected here, I can edit her active lesson plan. So these are all the lesson plans that she's using in this kind of advanced scheduler. So I'm going to click on edit. And I want to select that reading 1 plan to include it. Next, what I'll do is I'll jump to preset. And now presets, this looks a lot like the calendar, right? Except instead of specific days or dates, you just have days of the week. And so these preset blocks here are preset blocks of time when I want the scheduler to basically schedule these specific courses. So for example, from Monday through Friday from 9 to 10 a.m., I have Ancient History 1, and then I have Spelling from 10 to 11, and so on. And so if I'm running the scheduler and I select the preset option, the scheduler will look at the lesson plan, it'll match up the course with my preset, and then it'll schedule it at that given time. So this is obviously handy if you know you want a particular schedule or structure to things. So let's go ahead and add a new preset. And I'll do this one for reading 1. Let's have it be from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There you go. So now I have a preset for reading 1 from 3 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Oops. So now let's jump to the scheduler. And so I think I mentioned this is kind of our advanced scheduler. And it's advanced because what it can do is it can schedule more than one lesson plan at a time. So again, those active lesson plans that we selected earlier, these are all the active plans for Campbell right now. And you can see I have 7 of them. I'm going to just keep them all selected and then continue to day and date. And now on day and date, instead of using like the daily option or a weekly option or anything like that, I'm going to choose the preset option. And what that'll do when I run it is it'll match up those preset times with the course, with the subject course information from the lesson plans, and it'll drop those into those preset blocks for us. So I'm going to choose preset, and then I'm going to choose a start date. I'm going to choose the 19th, Monday of next week, and I'm going to continue until the 23rd. So I'm just going to schedule next week. And I definitely recommend only scheduling, however you're doing it, whether you're scheduling lesson plans or you're creating assignments. I like to just do 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. Because if you go further beyond that, you're probably going to end up rescheduling things, right? Because that's the beauty, again, of homeschooling, is that you don't have to be on such a rigid schedule. You don't need to know what you're doing May 23rd on September 13th, right? Like you'll figure it out when you get there. So I like to just schedule 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. So let's go ahead and continue to preview. And so if you remember, we had 7 lesson plans selected, and we're going to do just next week. And so here we are, we're viewing 51 items. So it went through each one of those lesson plans, found where we had left off previously and picked up from there, and scheduled these items for those preset times. So here we go. I've got Ancient History 1 from 9 to 10. There's 2 items for that. Then I've got Spelling from 10 to 11. And let's find, here's Reading 1, Monday from 3 to 4. And again, Reading 1, Tuesday from 3 to 4. So you can see with just a few clicks of the mouse, we scheduled 51 items across seven different lesson plans for an entire week. So let's go ahead and select all of these and then choose Accept. And so when you think about workflow, again, if you have all of your lesson plans created ahead of time, if you're using presets, you could come in on a Sunday night, click a few buttons and kind of schedule your entire week or your students' entire week right away and be good to go. So this will just load up here. And now let's jump to the agenda to take a look at this. So this was this week. Let's move to next week. And boom, there you go. Campbell has a full week next week. These are all 51 of those items that are now assignments on her agenda for next week. So pretty powerful in that we were able to schedule all of these with precise times and days of the week, all with just a few clicks. All right, so just to recap on lesson plans, we saw an example, the Abeka Arithmetic one. We created a simple plan. We imported one from the shared plan library, and then we scheduled the lesson plans 2 different ways. One, kind of the simple way where we just selected the items we wanted and then scheduled them. And then also the more advanced way where we used the lesson plans and presets page and used a preset to schedule. All right, so real quick on reports. So reports can be generated as PDF files, and you can save those, print them, or email them. Now the daily task list, which I'll show you here in a second, is a great report to use on a day-to-day basis. It's basically kind of like your to-do list for the day. And then transcripts and report cards, these can be generated as long as you have at least 1 completed and graded assignment in a course. So a course will only show up on a transcript or report card if at least 1 assignment for that time period is graded and completed. Because otherwise, you would just have a course show up and you'd have a big 0 because you hadn't created any assignments or marked them complete or graded them yet. So just keep that in mind if you're generating a transcript or a report card. But let's just jump over here real quick. I want to show you the daily task list right here in the reports section of the menu. Now, there are a number of different options here of what you can select or deselect for the daily task list. I'm just going to kind of keep things selected the way I have them here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to generate this for next week, the 19th through the 23rd. And I'll go ahead and click on Generate Report. Now that it's ready, I'll pick up the report, and that downloads a PDF file. And here it is. So this is the daily task list for Campbell. Basically, it's all those 51 assignments that we just created, and it lays them out in this list format. And so I could print this out, I could put it on a clipboard or on a bulletin board, and then Campbell and I would know everything we need to do every day, and I have all the information that we need. So that's the daily task list, and it's certainly handy, and a lot of folks use it on a day-to-day basis. All right, so wrapping up here, talking about workflows again, just to recap a little bit. I know we talked about workflows throughout the presentation tonight, but you can certainly create and complete single assignments on a daily basis, just like we did at the beginning. And in fact, I would almost recommend that if you're just starting out. Because what it does, it gets you comfortable with Homeschool Tracker. It gets you comfortable with creating things, editing things, setting up your subjects and courses and your activities and all of that. If you try to go all out right from the beginning and do lesson plans and all that stuff, I know it can be overwhelming, right? Because as we saw, it's a very deep program. So I would recommend just start out slow. Start out just doing single assignments, and maybe even start by doing it just in a logging way, kind of like the unschooler approach, where, for example, if you're already using like a binder or some other kind of planner, keep using it and just add in Homeschool Tracker as the record keeping portion. And then once you feel comfortable with it, you can slowly phase out your other method of planning and use the planning tools within Homeschool Tracker if you like. Or you could use the two concurrently for as long as you like, right? Again, the flexibility that Homeschool Tracker has in terms of it's not going to take over your homeschool if you don't want it to. We don't, that's not why we exist. We're here to give you a tool that you can use in a number of different ways. And so it's really just up to you and your comfort level in terms of how you want to go about using it. And then the other workflow that we showed you was using lesson plans. And you could have a single lesson plan, you could have multiple lesson plans, you could have lesson plans for everything, and you could schedule those each and every week if you like, or every 2 weeks. And again, I recommend just scheduling things 1 or 2 weeks at a time. There's kind of this temptation to create a lesson plan and then schedule the whole thing for the entire year, which kind of defeats the purpose, right? Because if you're going to do that, you might as well just have created all the assignments for the entire year. So again, the benefit of the lesson plan is it kind of allows you to trickle those assignments out to your students on your own pace or on their own pace. So I recommend just scheduling 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. And certainly there are a lot of other workflows. We see users using Homeschool Tracker in a number of different ways. It's always fun to see how folks are using it. All right, so Q&A time. It's 8:58. We went for 58 minutes straight, but I am more than happy to stay on as long as you like to answer all of your questions. So it looks like Joan has a question already. If you put assignments in the agenda view, do they show up in the calendar? Yeah, I believe, well, so just to clarify, you have the agenda calendar view and you have the agenda list view. And the agenda itself is just that. It's just, it's the list of things that you or your student need to do on a given day or at a given time. And you can view that in 2 different ways. You can view it in a calendar, or you can view it in a list, right? So if you put something on the calendar, like these 51 items that we scheduled, for example, they're all here visible on the calendar. If I then go to the list view, it's all the same data, right? We're just viewing it differently. So what I'll do, let's just look at next week. And here we go. These are those 51 items for next week. Same 51 items, the exact same, right? Here's Campbell, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., Ancient History 1. This same item exists on the calendar view as well. The reason there's 2 different views is it gives you basically just different ways to interact with the data. So right here in the list view, I can see all of this stuff kind of in context with each other, right? And I could edit them together. I could move things around and kind of know what I'm working with without having to look at each and every assignment individually. Whereas the calendar view, if we go back to that, is a little bit harder to know kind of what's inside of this without actually opening it up, right? So there are 2 different views for 2 very different purposes, but it's all the same data, right? So hopefully that answers your question, Joan. Okay, so Marja's asking, can you please show us an attendance record? Yeah, sure. So let's just move back to last week. So remember these attendance records that were automatically generated? If I just open one of them and then click on more, you can choose the date, obviously, for that attendance record, and then the type. So it can be present, which means like full day present. You can be present half day. You can also create an attendance record for absent. So I'm using the present full day right now. And with attendance records, the real benefit there is that you can then generate the attendance report if that's important to you, right? So, depending on your state, for example, you might need to submit attendance reports. Or if you want to kind of compile that along with a transcript, if you're sending it off to a college, for example, you can do that as well. So the attendance record itself is pretty straightforward. There's not really a lot to do here other than to choose the type here. But when you want to generate an attendance report, I can show you that real quick. Let's just generate an attendance report for this week. And then I can generate that. I can see basically the whole month of September here. And I see that Campbell was present on the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th for 4 days. Now imagine you did this for your entire year, right? You would see all of that data here. Or these are really popular for folks that do need to submit these attendance reports to the state, for example, like a monthly attendance report. And so you could just generate this every month, send it off to whoever needs to see it, and you're good to go. So hopefully that is helpful. That answers your question, Marja. Any other questions out there? Feel free to submit them. Happy to answer all of your questions. Okay, so Joan asks, I am an administrator and teacher. I can't see the entries that my other teachers add to the agenda list view. Is there something special that I need to do? You know, Joan, I think we saw your question come in via email as well. So there shouldn't be anything special you need to do. So what Joan is asking, so there are a few different account types within Homeschool Tracker. You have the admin account, which is what I'm using right now, and it's probably what most of you are using. That's the account that you created when you signed up for Homeschool Tracker. Then you can create teacher accounts as well, all from the subscription users page here. So you can create teacher accounts, and then you can also create student accounts. Now, admin and teacher accounts basically are identical. The only difference is the admin one allows you to change your billing information and allows you to actually create other teachers and that sort of thing. So your question, Joan, of if your teachers are adding things to the agenda list view, but you're not seeing them, it's probably just something having to do with your filters here on the list view, right? Because if I'm adding something to the list view, all I'm doing is I'm adding it to our database collectively. So it's likely that you know, that user, when they're logged in, they are adding it somewhere and their settings are viewing it a certain way. And then when you log in, your settings are viewing it a certain way. So I would check, you know, if you could check it right now too, Joan, if you like. If you go to your agenda list view, take a look at these filters here on the left. Make sure that, you know, it says students all, types all, completion status all, subject course all. When I see all here, that to me says that I'm not filtering anything out. I'm viewing everything that I can view for this date range. And then also obviously check that as well. So if you do that, you should see everything that is in your database that either you created or your students created, or excuse me, or your teachers created. So hopefully that's helpful. But if you're still having problems, definitely let us know, and we'll certainly respond to your email if we haven't already. One thing that's helpful, if you do email us, this goes for everybody, and something's just not looking right or you're having trouble, you can always send us a screenshot. And a lot of times we'll ask you guys to send us screenshots because it's just easier for us to know what you're seeing on your end. So if you attach a screenshot to your email, then we can almost immediately identify the problem. So for example, Joan, and I'm not saying that this is your issue, for example, but you know, if I saw a screenshot and it came back like this, and the question was, I can't view things in the agenda list view, well, I would look over here and instantly know, oh, she has something filtered here. She's only viewing appointments, attendance, chores, and days off. So our response then would be, oh, make sure you check your filters here to make sure that you have assignments checked as well. So that's definitely what I would recommend, would be to check your filters. And then again, if you're still having trouble, feel free to send us a screenshot and hopefully we can figure it out for you. Okay, Barbara's asking, I am using the new HST online version for the first time, used older version for years, was hoping to learn how to add an entire book more easily. So if you can respond to that, Barbara, in terms of clarifying, when you say add an entire book, do you mean to your library as a resource? I'll show you how to do that real quick if you like. If you go to the library list view here, these are all the books that I have in my library. And if I open one, I can see more information about it. Barbara responded, yes, including tests, etc. I have a feeling, Barbara, that you're talking about adding a book or like a curriculum to your account, like a lesson plan, for example. Because adding a book in terms of the library item is different than adding in all of the lessons and the tests and everything that go along with a book. Okay, so yes, the curriculum. So that's effectively, or essentially what you're asking is creating a lesson plan, right? So if you have a book, a curriculum, like let's say you went and bought, All About Spelling Level 5 or something, how do you create the lesson plan that goes along with it? Well, first thing I would do is go to the shared lesson plan library and see if there's one already created, right? So what was that one that I was just looking at, All About Spelling? Let's just see. So already, here's a whole bunch of All About Spelling lesson plans in here. So I would take a look to see if any of these were applicable to what I was doing, right? If they might be helpful to me. So here's one that somebody put together. So that could be one way to do it, right? If that doesn't exist in here and you need to create it yourself, then you'll have to go through the process of creating the lesson plan like we did earlier with the sample lesson plan. And then I would also recommend that you check out our webinar that we did specifically on lesson planning. So again, from homeschooltracker.com, you go to support and then training center. And then just click on this lesson planning webinar here, and that'll just take you to YouTube. But we spent a lot of time on this webinar specifically talking about how to create like really detailed lesson plans. And one of the things that we did within that is we took a book. We found a curriculum, and I kind of broke down how to look at it in terms of how I would set that up for a lesson plan within Homeschool Tracker. So can't really answer your question completely tonight, Barbara, but I would point you in the direction of this webinar here, the lesson planning webinar, as well as just creating that lesson plan on your own. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, Jody's asking, what is the difference between the 3 transcript reports? Great question, Jody. So Jody, probably you noticed that here on the transcript, we have 3 different versions. We have transcript columns, transcript combined, and transcript full page. Now, I can't really generate these right now because I don't have a lot of data in this account, but if we jump to the help page for transcripts, there are samples here. So this is the transcript full page. And so what it does basically is it's kind of like the name implies, it's a full page, meaning it's full width. So you'll see your subject and then your course. And again, this is why it's so important to get your subjects and courses right up front, because it's reflected on the transcript that way, right? So for example, look at this. So you've got subject, business, course, economics. Like that might not be actually the best naming mechanism because you could have multiple economics courses, but you get the idea, right? And then you got foreign language, Spanish, language arts, English 9. If you just had a bunch of random names here, it wouldn't be organized very well. Anyway, get to your question, Jody, this is the transcript full page, how that looks. This is the transcript columns, so it's more condensed. So for example, if you were just doing like 4 years of high school and you wanted it all to fit on one page, for example, you might be able to do that with a transcript columns format because it shows 2 columns like this. And then you have the transcript combined, which is also like a compact column format. And it combines all of the years together. So whereas these are broken up by year, you can see by school year, 2008, 2009, 2009, 2010. This one is just a running list. It doesn't tell you when they happen. So that may or may not be useful to you, but it's just another option, right? Depending on your needs for that particular transcript. But one thing too is when you're ready to generate transcripts, there's no harm in just generating all 3 and seeing what you like or what works best for you. You know, when you generate a report, any report for that matter, you're not doing any harm to your database or anything like that. You're really just kind of pulling information out of the database and creating a PDF file so that you can use it. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. any other questions out there, feel free to keep them coming. These are all really great questions. Thank you guys for sending those in. And thank you again for joining us tonight. I know it's getting late and there's a lot of other things I'm sure you'd rather be doing, but I really appreciate you guys being on. One of the things too, while I have you on, and if there's no other questions coming in, so we are recording this, like I mentioned. We'll send you a link to that recording when it's available. One of the things that we like to do for folks that attend the webinar is, because we know that if you are on the webinar, if you're spending an hour and 15 minutes with me on a Tuesday night, like that means you're committed, right? You're committed to learning about Homeschool Tracker. You're committed to like really taking your homeschool to the next level and to really just being the best that you can be. And so to show our appreciation for you being on tonight, we're going to go ahead and credit your account with a free month of Homeschool Tracker. So what I'll do after this, or maybe tomorrow, is we'll pull a report of everybody that was online tonight, and then we'll go into your account and basically move your expiration date forward a month, and then we'll send you an email to let you know that we did that as well. So it's just our way to say thank you for joining us tonight. And if you are not a current customer, we'll be able to see that as well. And so what we can do is we'll send you a coupon code or a way to basically get a free month on us. So just our way of saying thanks. And so and that we really appreciate you guys joining us tonight. So that free month of Homeschool Tracker will be on us entirely. So if there are no other questions, I think we might wrap it up. So again, thank you guys so much. And we really appreciate you being on tonight. Again, don't hesitate to email us if you have any questions or need direction, or a lot of times, you know, the question may come in and while we might not be able to answer it directly because it's so specific to your homeschool and your needs, what we can do though is we can usually point you in the right direction, right? So that you're not just kind of spinning your wheels necessarily, but we can show you examples, or we can, you know, show you a video or show you the help documentation on something in particular. So, you know, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. We really appreciate you guys, and we thank you so much for joining us tonight. So with that, thank you again, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a good night.